In Europe, it was America and the Soviet Union. And this ideological struggle between them would be played out on a continent beset by chaos.
I made my way eventually through Mannheim, where I was born. And as I made my way through Germany, I realized the total destruction that had taken place in that country. Displaced persons walking all over, from the east to the west, from the west to the east. Large cities bombed out, ruins.
In the homeland of the once powerful and terrifying Third Reich, people now battled one another on the streets for bread.
There was absolutely nothing to eat, so they rummaged in garbage cans. If I think of my father rummaging in garbage cans, it's terrible.
People without jobs, people without homes, children without parents. It was a nightmare. It was hideous. And one of the coldest winters on record came down on Europe.
There are a lot of children who didn't have any Christmas. We had a big Christmas party for them. I played Santa Claus. I remember bringing those little kids up and sitting them on my lap, and the happy faces and the smiles, very rewarding.
The only real force was the Allied military government. That was the power. The country had come to a standstill. There was total anarchy in this country.
And throughout Western Europe, deprivation and devastation were causing political turmoil. In America, there was concern that this chaos would somehow encourage Western Europeans to turn to the communists.
It seemed as though, in a way, they had a lot of the cards. Wherever there was misery and poverty, where could people turn but to communism? Capitalism, don't forget, hadn't looked too good in the 30s. A lot of people had thought it was played out. There was a sense that Italy might topple the next election, even France. There was a definite momentum, it seemed to me, in favor of the Red Menace.
The political leadership in the United States, for its part, saw the wisdom in getting Europe back on its feet. In an act of unprecedented generosity, America sent $13 billion in aid.
The United States is the only country in the world today which has the economic power and productivity to furnish the needed assistance.
The Marshall Plan, named after the Secretary of State, seemed the perfect merger of American ideals and good politics.
America was a strong, generous country. It is fashionable to make fun of it, but it really was true, and we were rich, and we were confident, and we were sympathetic to the devastation of Europe and what we could do. The Russians were very, very harsh. Where we were sending in stuff to Western Europe, they were stripping down Eastern Europe and mailing and railroading everything back east.
As the Soviets tightened their hold on the captive nations of Eastern Europe, those who could escape did. Alice Sylvester and her family had survived the Nazi death camps and made their way home to Czechoslovakia.
There was a Russian doctor, and he said, "My child, I love my country, but the Russians are going to overtake here. So my advice to you is go, run." So my mother and I, during the night, went to the railroad station, and we got on a train, and we got out. And the next morning, they closed the borders, so the people that stayed couldn't get out.
Churchill had been right. Those people now trapped behind the Iron Curtain would be subject to Soviet exploitation and repression for the next 4 decades. Berlin had lived through a nightmare, and at the end of World War II, the landscape reflected it. The fighting here had been particularly vicious. On the Eastern Front, the Germans had fought to the bitter end. The Soviet army had suffered 500,000 casualties before the German capital fell.
The Russian soldiers, they were intoxicated by blood, by cruelty, and it was with the memories of what Germans did to their mothers and sisters and daughters, they wanted to do the same. There was huge loot, burning down of houses, rape.
Soviet troops raped thousands of women